Okay, today is our last video. I am going to talk about how to get your left hand fingers shaped in a way that helps you play really quickly. And we're also going to focus in on the fourth finger and how to help support it if you're discovering that you have some habits like sticking it up straight or else keeping it kind of in the palm of your hand rather than it matching the shape and availability of your other fingers. So I'll take you through a couple of exercises on left hand dexterity and just left hand setup. We'll also talk a little bit about the thumb and how it can help support the fourth finger, both just in position, but also with extensions as well. I find especially, I mean, you guys are in high school, but the younger students sometimes whose hands are still kind of little will be like, my fourth finger's not comfortable, or like, I can't do an extension. And for me, for a long time, those four finger extensions were just impossible, and I didn't really know how I could possibly reach them and have them be in tune and also have them not like strain my hand. And my hands are just regular size, they're not small necessarily, so but then I discovered the power of the thumb and how you can actually manipulate where your thumb goes to help with those extensions and to make them feel more comfortable. So yeah, this video pairs well with both the vibrato video because we talk about the shape of the fingers, but it also works really well with the shifting video too, because we're going to talk about making sure that we're leaving down fingers instead of like lifting them when we're done with them, which can slow you down a lot and also disrupts your intonation. But the slowing down is the big part, because if you're always dropping and lifting, you're now doing two motions instead of dropping and then just adding, which means you can go a lot faster and it will be a lot cleaner too. So that will be today's video, and it's been fun making these for you. I hope they've been sort of educational, and I hope they've given you some ideas for how you can sort of work on your technique when we're not together and we're not doing rehearsals. But there's a lot we can do when we're just doing our practice, so. So first we have to think about how we're actually placing our fingers and whether they're staying down after we place them or whether we're lifting our fingers up every time we change a note. So I'll show you what I mean. So sometimes you see that when I add my second finger, my first finger pops up. And then I'm just placing one finger at a time. And you can see the kind of tension it creates here in my hand when I do that. Not to mention, if I were to go back down now, I'm not totally sure where those fingers are gonna go because they've lost their contact point with the fingerboard. So make sure that as you place a new finger, you keep the lower fingers down. Or if you're going straight from like an open A to a third finger, that you actually put down 1 and 2 with it. So instead of by itself, you put down 1, 2, and 3 all together. And that just gives the third finger, first of all, a lot more support and strength. And then second of all, makes 1 and 2 now available to you to move through quickly if you need to do that. So an exercise you can do really slowly is to just practice leaving down the finger you just used. So we'll do a little like 4-note guy. And when I got to 4, I had 1, 2, and 3 all down. You try that on all your strings. And as you go to lower strings, you're gonna have to swing this elbow underneath your instrument. And I find it's useful to use the same type of finger pattern, like half steps and whole steps across all the strings, and then mix it up the other way. So we'll do a like half step between 1 and 2. through all your different finger patterns that way. And start really slow, because at first, if you have a habit of popping your fingers up after you've played them, you might have to go very, very slow in order to get them to do what you want. So just another note about the problem with lifting and dropping fingers is that it disrupts your speed a lot, right? So if I'm trying to go that quickly, I cannot go that fast if I am going to lift and drop. Not to mention, the only thing I changed, like I kept my bow pressure and everything the same, was just my left hand, and you could hear how the sound just got really weak, and the clarity was gone, and I just felt like I was having to work so hard to maintain any kind of speed, where if I just keep them down and then lift them up, like add, take away, and not be like adding and taking away all at the same time, then it's really easy to play really fast. So that's something to keep in mind anytime you have runs, or especially in orchestra, where sometimes you're stuck doing like the same left hand pattern over and over and over again. So just keep an eye on that. Make sure you're not lifting up anything that you don't need to, and that you are keeping track of what fingers can just stay down while you're doing your little runs. Okay, so now the more advanced exercise for fourth finger, we're gonna go open 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, open, like that. So it's gonna give the fourth finger a huge workout, because you're going back and forth between 4 and 3, and now you're practicing separating them out and not keeping the fourth finger glued to third finger anymore. And you can decide how many da-da-da-da-das you're gonna do. I was a little bit unplanned about it, but it doesn't really matter. And then I should have mentioned this earlier too, but you should do all these exercises on a slur so that you don't also have to be working on your right and left hand coordination at the same time as you're working on your left hand setup. Okay, good. So now we've worked out our little fourth finger. So now we're ready probably to do some trills just between 3 and 4. And those trills make it so that it's really impossible for you to lift your fourth finger up too much or drop it down into the palm of your hand, because the fourth finger is engaged over and over again, and you're not just playing it and then leaving it. The thumb also plays an important role in balancing your hand. So if you're feeling like it's very difficult to reach with your fourth finger, or for your fourth finger to be in tune, you might want to check where your thumb placement is on your neck. So typically I have my thumb kind of here. Oh, I have eyeliner on my thumb. Between my second and first finger, but closer to my first finger. But if I know I'm going to be working a lot with my fourth finger, I actually move my thumb up more so that it's in between my second and my third finger, and that really, really helps balance 4, so that the lean of the hand isn't towards 1 and 2, which are already so strong, but rather a little bit more right in the center of the hand frame. I especially move my thumb up if I'm going to do a fourth finger extension, which is where that thing of where you go a half step above first position. So like on your A string, you would reach an F. When I do that, I for sure have to move my thumb up to help support the fourth finger. So set up that same exercise again. let's just do that one. And I want you to stop when you get to the end of your second finger, and then move your thumb up to be in between 2 and 3. So my thumb is aligned with my first finger now. And stop, move it up so that it's more in line with your second finger. And then reverse on the way back down. So essentially, as you go up the scale, you're going da 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 da, like that. Let's try again. Move your thumb up. Let's just repeat the fourth finger. Then move your thumb down. And when I start going quicker, I'm not so much like moving it as like a big gesture, but rather I'm kind of like leaning on the outside half of my thumb and kind of rolling like this. This is also good practice if you carry a lot of tension in your thumb, because it forces your thumb to be a little bit more mobile and a little more flexible, so it doesn't really allow it to like push into the neck too much or to be crazy tense, because it has to be movable, kind of like you're doing little baby shifts all the time, but they're just like little micro shifts. The thing you want to check too is the shape of your fingers as they are going down on the fingerboard. So if my fingers are flat like this, number one, intonation is going to be spotty because I'm using such a big part of my finger to play that note. Where if I keep my fingers a little bit more upright, like this, number one, they have more strength in that shape than flat like this. And two, I'm using a smaller amount of my finger to play that note, so it's a little bit more precise. So I'll show you, if we're doing a left hand exercise, turn this a little bit, and I have flat fingers, you can hear that the intonation is not precise, and like sometimes I'm getting it in tune and then other times not at all. And then the quality of the sound isn't crisp either. It's very like muddy, which is a problem. And then I'm trying to go as fast as I can with the flat fingers, and that's where I like totally top out. Like I cannot play any faster, and it feels bad. Like I feel like I can keep up that speed for like a second or two, but I wouldn't be able to maintain it for very long. So then if we do the same exercise, but we concentrate on having our fingers curved like this. I can go a lot faster and the intonation is more precise. Now it wasn't perfect, and some of that's because it's 9 in the morning. But it's much easier to play in tune with the rounded fingers, and I just feel like I could do that pattern like for like 10 minutes and not really get tired. I'm not fighting against like my fingers or my hand or anything. So and you may notice too that like one of your fingers is a little bit flatter and the others are a little bit rounder. Like for me, it's difficult for me to get my fourth finger really round. Like it always looks a little bit more straight like this rather than like this. And that's just like the size of your hand. But there's things I can do to help make that fourth finger more curved. So here it's straight and then here it's curved. And what I did was I took my hand and I just brought it around a little bit more. So from here to here. And I also changed where my thumb was. So if you're noticing a finger is really flat, and often if the fourth finger is flat, it causes the third finger to collapse as well, which is a problem. So make sure that they're all round. And the first finger, sometimes I see people with flat first fingers like this, where it's collapsed like that instead of round like that. And you just have little tiny muscles in your fingers. And so by doing these exercises, you're just training your muscles and doing little finger workouts. So at first it may feel uncomfortable and it might not even be all that successful. But the more you practice it, the stronger your fingers will actually get, and then the easier it will get. So have faith.